When you swing a club this summer, you could help save a life. Options Pregnancy Center invites you to join our Golf for Life tournament on June the 1st, supporting moms, babies, families right here in our community. Join us first at our kickoff on April the 13th to learn how you can get involved and receive a free round of golf. Call Vicki Parker, 501-743-5120 to attend the kickoff and see how you can partner. That's 501-743-5120. Golf for Life, because every life is worth defending.
Welcome to Sit on That Stump in Muddy Bottom with Vicki Parker. Vicki is an author and the CEO of Options Pregnancy Center in Cabot, Jacksonville, and Beebe. Now, here's Vicki.
Hello, welcome back to Sit on That Stump in Muddy Bottom. I'm your host, Vicki Parker, and today's episode is, well, it's sacred ground. We're talking about a story that so many women and men carry in silence, a story of fear, pressure, a decision made in a moment, a journey that took decades to find healing. And but today is not a story of shame, but today is a story of redemption. And sitting with me in another state is a very brave woman, a friend of mine, who chose to break her silence after a very long time, many years, Pam Daughtry with Save the Storks. And Pam, I'm so honored that you're here with me today.
I'm so honored to be able to have the opportunity to share more of my story with you.
I'm excited too. So Pam, before we just drive in, just really dig into this, I just want our listeners to understand that this is not just a conversation, that this is someone opening their heart so that someone else can find hope. Because many of our people that listen today, they've got that silent secret that you carried for so long, right? And
exactly.
So Pam, take us back. You were just 17 years old. You found out you were pregnant. And what was going through your mind at that time?
I want to take it back just a little bit further to just who I was as a teenager, because I feel like I am not alone, and I'm also the one that nobody would suspect. So I grew up in Michigan. I live in Florida now, but grew up in Michigan, had a wonderful family, had 3 siblings, and we were all raised going to Catholic school, going to church very regularly, and really involved in our youth group. I had a boyfriend from my freshman year of high school that also was in private schools, and his dad was a dentist. His parents were lovely. We had every resource available to us. We also had the desire to wait until we were married to be intimate, because that's what our parents were teaching us and what our faith taught us was really important.
Right.
And one year, our senior year, we blew it, and I ended up pregnant. When I found out I was pregnant, I was so horrified because I thought, it wasn't about me in that moment. I was so concerned for my parents and what they were going to look like having raised this child that was going to have a baby out of wedlock.
Right.
I didn't know anybody my age that had gone through a pregnancy. And when I talked with Brad about it, he right away was like, listen, I know you need to go to a doctor, but you need to make sure that you go somewhere that doesn't say Options, Choices, or Care Center in the name. Mm-hmm. You're a minor, and if you go to one of those places, they're first going to let your parents know, then they're going to make you drop out of school, and those places sell your baby. Now, of course, an adult would know that none of those things are true, but I was young. Right. And I believed the information that he was giving me. So I looked in the yellow pages for one of the places that wasn't any of those things, and it was my local abortion clinic. When I went to the abortion clinic, they were like very happy that I didn't end up in one of those doors. They also were concerned because I was a minor. So my abortion doctor said, you're 17, so I'm legally required to tell your parents. Is there any way you could bring in an ID of somebody who says that you are 18 so that we can help you out before this becomes a baby?
Wow. So it starts with a lie right off the bat.
Of course it did.
Yes.
And in my fear of being caught out in my sin, right? I listened to him, and I was so thankful. And I remember the day of my surgery, I went in with this idea of this woman, and I had to fill out the medical paperwork. They kept they kept my ID with them. I didn't know how to spell my last name. I didn't know my birthday. I didn't know my address, but it didn't matter.
No.
Which is really sad. And my abortion doctor even said to me that day, now remember, Pam, in the future, when you're ready to start a family, you don't ever have to tell your doctor that you've done this today, because remember, it's not going to be on your medical record. And I remember in that moment being so thankful that he was helping me out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was absolutely the opposite of helping.
It felt like help at the time. To a 17-year-old, it would feel like help. But in reality, in retrospect, as an adult, and I think this is where adults that have not walked this mile sometimes misunderstand and don't realize that to a 17-year-old, an adult, whatever they're saying, sounds like the right thing, because they're not at that place to make right decisions. Their front temporal has not even formed. So instead of really protecting you, they really just reinforced your fear, didn't they?
They did. And for years, the cry of my heart, and still even today, because I just am so sad that I'm missing out on the life of that child in my world, right?
Right.
The cry of my heart was, Lord, why couldn't you have dropped somebody in my lap that could have told me I was already a mom?
Yes.
I just had a parenting decision to make. That my parents might be stressed out when they find out that a baby's coming, but it's going to be their grandbaby, and they're going to love him or her more than they love me, right? No, I didn't get to hear that. So I also feel very confident that if I had gotten to hear a life-affirming conversation or positive things about, it's not my timing, but the Lord's timing, and that I'm going to love this little human more than I can imagine, and everything is going to be okay, and I have 40 weeks to figure it out, that all could have really helped to calm me down and to help prepare me for motherhood.
Yeah. And it's interesting that the very thing that the baby's father said is just don't go anywhere where there's options counseling or there's care in the name. Or isn't that interesting that those were the words that he had been taught, because he would have been taught the same thing. That this is not the place that you would want to go, because they might actually take care of you, and you might get a different story on it.
Yeah, and it's amazing to me that the pro-choice message is very, very loud and but also very limiting and full of fear, and that's exactly the opposite of what women need when facing decisions like this.
No, exactly, and we see that all the time. We know that when women and men go into the abortion clinics, or they call the abortion lines, they know the exact language that they want to hear. That girl on the other end is afraid, regardless of how old she is. She is really afraid. She feels like I always think of it, and after all the years of working with post-abortive moms, that what you hear is the fear in their voice. You hear like someone being caught in a trap, like a bear trap, because all they know is pain right now, and they just want out. And some of our listeners listening to us right now knows exactly what I'm talking about, because they have experienced this same thing. And so it's really easy in that second to feel that you want to hear what you want to hear, whether it's the right thing or not. It's what you want to hear because it's a solution, Right. It's a solution to the problem right now. So with the work that you do now, even you hear that now, but you experienced it firsthand.
Yep, absolutely. I remember thinking that it would be so much easier to go to the Lord with the sin of an abortion than it would be to walk out an unplanned pregnancy in my church.
Oh, wow.
And that is really, really sad.
It is really sad to think that and this is what, and I'd like for you to talk a little bit about this too, is that the culture of the church has got to change. And it has come a long way. I will say it's come a long way compared to when I was a teenager. And if I had gotten pregnant, it would have been devastating. I would have felt the exact same things because my dad was a pastor. And so it would have really been a deal for my family.
Yeah.
But with that same thing, we still don't have the culture in the church today where our pastors either one don't know how, they don't know, seems like a touchy situation. People like to say that it's politically polarized, but the truth is that it's spiritually. It's a spiritual issue. People don't want to talk about it because we just don't talk about it. The more that we talk about it, the more people like ladies like you that come out and willing to share their story, to say, you got women sitting in your church right now that is just like this, and they're feeling this. We've got teenagers in the church right now that will face this. Because they're sitting on the chair or on the pew does not mean that they're immune. It is not. If anything, they are targeted even more so because Satan loves nothing better than to rip our kids off of the pew and out of the church. So that statement you made, I hope that the people who are listening understand, and pastors and really realize that if we don't talk about abortion in the church, if we don't open up and share the devastation for the moms and what they go through, and the dads, I mean, when I used to, at the church where I attended for 16 years, where I used to do every Sanctity of Human Life month, I had the service, and it was amazing how many men would look up at me. It was a very private thing, but the pastor would close his eyes, actually, and I was the only one looking, and men would look up at me that had abortion in their past, and they're hurting too, but people think that they're only pushing. They're not being hurt from it, but they are.
Exactly. I made this commitment after I really received forgiveness from the Lord. And I think that's another big thing to talk about, is that statistically it takes 27 years after somebody has gone through an abortion that they're at a place where they are stewing with it for so long, and in their self-loathing and their shame and embarrassment and regret, that they really say, I've got to do something about this. And I know for me, I confessed the sin of my abortion to the Lord many, many times. And then I would walk away from the cross, and I picked up the shame and regret and walk back with it. And I even attended a church for 10 years where they did a post-abortive Bible study. And I would not even walk down that hallway because I was so concerned that women would look at me and see that I had done that too, or that I would see who the other women were. I was so afraid that I would be told I can no longer serve because I've done something so horrible.
Right.
But I had two realizations that I think were profoundly important for me in my healing journey. The first one is this, that the creator of heaven and earth can look at me and not see that sin. Mm. Who am I to hold on to it, right? I need to let it go and understand that the Lord knows the beginning and end of time. Mm-hmm. So when he knit me and formed me in my mother's womb, he knew I would make a decision to have an abortion.
Yes.
And he loves me. Mm-hmm. Right?
And you know what? Pam? and I always share this with the women at our post-abortion recovery group, that a lot of people don't think about this, but I had a girl one time that said to me, she said, I said, where do you think Jesus was the day of your abortion? And she said, well, I don't know where he was. And I said, well, he's all present. He's always there. And she said, well, he wasn't in the abortion clinic. I said, why?
Yeah, he was holding her hand, I'm sure.
Yeah, I said, honey, you were there. He was pleading to the last second. I promise you. He was appealing and being there with you till the last second. I said, but let me tell you something. Many, many, many years ago, thousands of years ago, when Jesus went, this very week, in fact, and he went to the whipping post, and he went to the whipping post, and he took the scourging that no human, totally human, could have lived through. And he shed his blood, and he did that. He did that, baby, for your mind, spirit, body, soul, and emotion to be healed, for your every part of you to be healed. But he knew when he went there what you were going to do. Then he goes to the cross, and he says, and I'm going to give my life now that she can come and accept me as Lord and Savior, and I can take her to heaven with me and be with me forever and always. And I remember those girls looking at me like deer in the headlights. They could not fathom that our Lord would do such a thing. But I said, see, he did. He also knew that we were going to sin in other ways, and he did it anyway. And I said, the sin of abortion, this is beauty of the Christ that we serve. That Christ does not level us humans. We do this, but Christ does not level our sin. You see, when you told that lie, it's going to be judged the same way as the abortion was. If you stole something in your lifetime, when we get to heaven, that's going to be judged the same way, and it's also going to be forgiven the same way. And you got to understand the man of who we serve. He is the most incredible, a love we cannot comprehend. So, Pam, when you were there and you were going through that, you knew, most Christian women know that God will forgive them or has forgiven them, even if they have not accepted it. Here's the funny thing that I always think is odd, is when I drill down to it, come to find out they can't forgive themselves. They hold themselves at a different standard than what Jesus Christ, who paid the whole price for, does.
Exactly. And that's the enemy. So for me, the enemy used the shame of my abortion to put his thumb on me and to hold me down and to make me feel like I was not worthy to be truly authentic or to share my testimony or to really effectively serve in ministry. And I went to a youth conference with one of my kids. I was there as a chaperone and heard this message. And he said that what God wants is he wants you to buck Satan off of you, to not let him hold you down, and to use that very intimate pain that you know so well for ministry. So in that moment, I knew that as many times as I had the opportunity to share what I went through, I would share to help other women to understand how much you suffer the loss of your child after you make a decision for an abortion. When a woman is pregnant, her cornea thickness changes, her heart rate changes. You are no longer number one in your own body. Your baby gets nutrients before you do. And I can tell you that the moment that my baby was out of my body went into trauma. And I have never been the same since that moment. But God, right?
Yes.
So hopefully in sharing my story, a woman will say, oh, that's not for me. I can't do that, right? Or maybe a man or a woman who's walked through an abortion and is feeling all of the shame and regret that I felt will find that God wants them to use that as their mission field and wants them to help other people heal faster or never have to experience walking through life having chosen an abortion in their past.
And the thing is, most women and men do not know that there is a place for healing. They don't think they deserve it. You probably didn't feel like you deserved it either. Most of the women that I talk to, and we go through our group, they don't think they deserved it. They don't have the right. Just like they feel like they don't have the right to call themselves a mom. They don't have the right to think that they have a child that's in heaven. They don't think that they have the right to own that. But the truth is, you're always a mom. You were a mom when you conceived. You were a mom forever. And you're either a mom of a baby here on earth or you're a mom of a baby in heaven. Because there's no doubt about where they go. We have no doubt where they go. Yeah. But we want them to be rejoined and restored. I remember one of my groups that one of the moms said to me, she said, I just resolved myself that I would go to hell. And I said, oh, my word, honey, why would you do that? And she said, I just don't think I could face my baby. And I said, honey, let me tell you what's going on in heaven right now. And I said,
that baby is playing with Jesus.
That baby's playing with Jesus and cannot wait to meet his or her mom.
Exactly.
I said, you got to remember what is going on in heaven. There's no sadness. There's no sorrow. There's no unforgiveness. It's not allowed. That baby the Lord has removed any knowledge of how that baby got there. That baby doesn't know anything but joy, peace, and tranquility. I mean, that's what that baby knows. And that baby feels the love of its mother. And you can openly and legally feel the love of your child too. So that would just, but people don't realize everything the enemy brings against a post-abortive mom, because you are the image bearer of Christ. So is that child the image bearer of Christ, and he can't get one. He's going to try to get both. So therefore, he will take you out unless he's allowed to move in and be the Lord of your life. And so the guilt and the shame is tremendous, isn't it?
It's tremendous. So when my mom was passed, and my dad passed away, he had a heart attack. And the first thing when my dad passed, I was not 30 years old yet. The first thing I thought was, oh no, he's going to be in heaven and he's going to meet that baby. And I never told him.
Oh, wow.
So then you fast forward a few years later, my mom had cancer and she was dying and she was very afraid. And I wanted her to have some hope of heaven. So, and I also didn't want to have that secret between her anymore. I thought it would be very healing.
Right.
Now, I also did not have a very wonderful relationship with her. So that's why I did not go to her when I was a teenager.
Right.
But I shared my story with her and told her about this baby that was in heaven. And she said to me, do you not think I was on the phone listening to you plan your abortion? You thought you were a big girl and chose to do this without me. And I watched you suffer for months, and you never once came to me. That's your fault for not including me in that decision.
Wow, Pam.
And it was very painful, and I was not healed yet at that point.
Right.
My kids were teenagers, and I left my mom, and I went to my kids. And this was always my heart posture, too, when I worked with high school kids, because I knew that they were going through hard things that they felt like they couldn't talk to an adult about. And I said to my kids, I want to make a commitment to be your person, right? I would say that to the kids in my youth group, too.
Right.
I want to be the person you come to when you're going through something that is so hard that you feel like nobody can understand.
Right.
There was no promise that I wouldn't include their parents or, I wouldn't help them to talk with their parents, but I just wanted them to feel like they had an outlet.
Yeah.
And I told my kids, I did not have that relationship with my mom, and this is what I went through. And I made a decision, and I had an abortion. And my daughter got instantly angry with me, and she said, Mom, my whole life I've told you that I wanted a big sister.
Oh, wow.
why didn't you tell me that I had one, and you killed her? And of course, in that moment, the words came out of her mouth, and she instantly tried to pull them back because she knew that was painful. But that was also the reality of what she was feeling. And she was right. She always told me she wanted a big sister, right? The beauty is that now we celebrate her, and we celebrate the fact that she does have one that one day she'll be reunited with, which is really, really cool.
It is.
Right?
It is,
and
because,
I think
yeah. Go ahead.
That's one area where we as a church can have a positive impact in the lives of these young adults. Now, adults are waiting much later to get married than when I was a young adult, right? So I feel like that also gives them a much longer time where we need to be investing in them and helping them to stay on a path that would keep them from ever needing to even consider having an abortion, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So if we as adults inside the church can become mentors to the younger generation so that they have somebody to talk to when they are going through hard things, that are a little wiser in their walk with the Lord, a little wiser in life, that could hopefully help them to have some good language and never ever consider making the choice to have an abortion. Well, because you don't know what you know on the other side of having an abortion until you've done it. And I don't know one woman that I've really had a heart-to-heart conversation with that is like, oh yeah, that was the best thing I ever did.
Exactly.
All I hear.
And even if they say that on the front end, after the defense walls go down, because that's a defense.
Yes.
After those defense walls down and we get down to the bare tacks, we find out, well, yeah, it's bothered me like this. There's just not one of them. Even the hardest of hardest pro-choice people, pro-abortion people, I don't call them pro-choice, but pro-abortion people, even with them, they're hurting. They're hurting. And unfortunately for them, I look at them and I realize the level of pain that they are in, that they're having to mask. And they must be exhausted, absolutely exhausted, from having to mask that pain, that shame, and that guilt. And the only way that they can get appeal for that shame and guilt is to get somebody else on their side, to say, to reconfirm in them, justify the choice that they made, whether it was made for them or they made the choice, or how many times they made the choice. That is the biggest thing for them, is being able to, for people to understand that they are in pain. It doesn't matter what they say to you, they are in pain. That's why they're acting out the way that they are, because they made the choice, and then they felt the regret. Because exactly something you said just a few minutes ago hit the nail on the head, I thought, because I remember a lady right here in Little Rock, she shares her testimony, and she told me she went to Memphis to get her have her abortion done. And I remember that she said, I remember when I sat up on the side of the table and I got down off the table, the first immediate feeling I had was regret. But she said the minute that I put my hand on that doorknob, that cold doorknob, to open the door to go into the recovery, she said, Vicki, I felt, oh my word, I've just taken the life of my baby. And she said, even after that, she said, the whole time I'm in recovery. So I believe that there's not one woman out there that does not feel. Sometimes it's release. In all truth, some women will have told me they also felt release because that's over with. But the very next emotion that they feel is the regret. And so then they have to find a way to mask that and to cover it up, just very much similar to a sexual abuse survivor that has been through a trauma, because you mentioned trauma in your body earlier, and I talk about this a lot in group, because it is a trauma that a woman goes through. Her body, and they tell us that scientifically it's proven that we hold trauma literally in our flesh, in our bones. We feel it. It is there. And that's why it's so hard for so many people to get through PTSD and or learn how to manage it at all. And through the healing grace of Christ is the way that it has to be done to be complete. And I think that's how women who are able to step up and share their testimony, because it becomes about what God is going to use you to do through your testimony. And that's exactly what he's done with you, hasn't he, Pam?
Yes, exactly. My story has no power if I keep it tucked in the deepest corner of my heart. My story only has power if I share and talk about the journey and where the Lord has taken me through it. It's also, though, not just something, and I've seen this so much since working at Save the Storks, this is not just a women's problem.
No.
Men suffer just as much. I had the opportunity to speak with my high school boyfriend a couple of years ago and hear his side of the story. And we didn't talk after that. We might have talked a couple of times after we went through our abortion together. Mm-hmm. He got to sit in the room with me, and I don't think that men can sit with women anymore, but I was certainly thankful that he was there that day. But I talked with him, and he said that was the defining moment in his life, that he thought, he promised the Lord, I'm never going to get this far away from you, that I'm going to do something that is so costly to so many people around me.
Mm. Mm. And did he share at all about how he felt like abortion had affected him as the male, as the father?
Yeah, so there was a lot about that day that I didn't remember, and he told me that in the morning he took me before my abortion to get my nails done. He's like, I know that's dumb. He's like, but I wanted you to feel good about yourself. I wanted you to feel confident, so I didn't know what else to do, so I took you for a manicure. Mm. And he said, when you were on the abortion table, you were crying so hard, I thought for sure the doctor was going to say, we can't do this. Clearly, she doesn't want to do this. He's like, but no help came. And he said that I held his hand while the doctor performed the abortion. And when the doctor left the room, I let go of his hand, and one of my fingernails broke off in the center of his palm. Mm. And he said, to this day, 30 years later, I still have a crescent-shaped scar in the middle of my palm. And he said, I'm sure that the Lord gave me that as a permanent reminder. So whenever I'm going through anything that I think is hard, I feel that and I pray and I try and remember to never get that far from the Lord. Mm. And I thought that was really beautiful.
It is. It is. And, I had the privilege of carrying a group of men from my church through recovery, and their wives came to me, actually. And I didn't have a male leader, but I had one of my board members that did it with me. And I remember the big thing that came out of that was that what had been taken from them, what God gave our men upon their creation was to be our protector, our provider, and conqueror. And so yes. Those three things are stripped from them because of the laws of the land. They don't have any power. They don't have any say-so whatsoever in this action. Unless they're saying yes to her,
Right, and the world says to us as a nation, it's her body and her choice. You stay out of it and let her make the decision and support her with whatever she chooses. And so I feel like in that men feel like I have to be quiet. I just have to support her. But if men would stand up and fight for their children.
It's all she's looking for, isn't it?
That's all
really
she's looking for.
She's looking for the man to stand up and say, look, I don't know how we'll do this, but I'm telling you, I'm going to be with you. I'm gonna work this. Even if we are not a couple, I'm gonna walk this life or this child out with you. We're gonna work this out.
Yes. Yep.
I remember when my granddaughter was conceived, my son said that he and his wife, he said, Mom, it was no longer about us anymore. Once she was conceived, our lives, it became about her. Because what we did, the choices we made from that point on, all surrounded her. And I thought if more parents could get to that place where they realize you're a mom now, you're a dad now. You don't wait till they breathe outside of the womb. They're already created. They're already yours. They carry markers that are yours. They can be connected to you for all of eternity. So it's huge how even the enemy set out to break down our men from what they're supposed to be, where their lead is, and what they're supposed to be too. It was heartbreaking for me to hear them share. I remember one of the wives said to me, "You've got to do this, Vicki, because he can't even make a decision about which bill to pay first." I said, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, he wasn't that way before, but he is now." And she said, "I'm telling you, we've got to do something because he just don't." It strips so much away from them in so many different ways. So people who think that men don't go through something, they could not protect their child. They could not save the life of their own child. And that's what they were put on this earth to do, was to protect, be the leader of the home, protect and provide and conquer anything that would come against them. And that's been stripped away. So no wonder our world's in the shape that it's in.
But it's not all darkness, because there are pregnancy resource centers like yours, like all over the country, 1,500 pregnancy centers where women can go and receive life-affirming care, not just in her decision to choose life for her baby, but also in preparing her for motherhood and then helping her in her motherhood with resources and education, which is super important, and why I love the work that I get to do at Save the Stork.
Well, that's
so much.
what I also want to get to that, because here's the thing. When women are thinking, when they share their story or they're about to come on, God, maybe that's not what they're called into, but maybe they're called into a pregnancy center. Maybe they're called into start the ministry within the church. Maybe they're called into something that has to do with that. Maybe they're called in to do something totally different, but yet it goes back to they get an opportunity to share that story, and because they are healed, they now can do that Sunday school class that they wouldn't have done it before because they didn't think they were qualified. God would tell them, you can't do that because, the devil would tell them, you can't do that because if they knew who you really were and what you did, they would even throw you out of the church. Those are the lies that the enemy sits on their shoulders and tells them. But what I love about your story, Pam, is the journey through all that and all the things that God has done. And would you just agree that to share with the women, whatever you do, if you're listening to this show, whatever you do, get a hold of us and let us help you get through a post-abortion recovery healing. After the choice is what we do with Options Pregnancy Center. And in fact, we've got a class coming up in June, so they could get in touch with us and we could do that. But there are others around the country, but in the state also, that they could do. So they're private, they're very intimate, and your story's your story. Nobody gets to tell your story but you. So it's a beautiful thing. But here's the thing: God led you to something that I just love it as a redemptive story. Would you share about Save the Storks and how you got there and what you do within that ministry and all that they do? Because some of you may be pregnancy centers that are listening, you may be churches, but you may be just general public. And Pam's got some really good information for you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I had a very cool experience with the Lord. I shared that story about my son and how I heard that message when we were at camp, how Satan uses the worst thing you've done to hold you down and how God wants you to break free of that. I came home from that experience on fire for life and wanting to stand on a mountaintop and tell women why they don't want to make a choice to have an abortion. And I got home from this camp with my son on Sunday, and on Monday got an email about this work, this life-saving work in pro-life ministry. And I immediately hit send on my resume and called about, wanting to do something. Yeah. And I feel like the Lord doesn't call us all to be the hand, right? Some of us are a foot, right? Not everybody is going to have an experience where they really receive healing from the Lord and leave their career and go into pro-life work. It's unrealistic. Right. But just in being comfortable to talk and have a good conversation with somebody can really make a profound impact in a family's life, right?
Because
so not just a woman, but in men as well.
Yeah, it could be a family member. It might be a coworker, and just sharing your story may help them open up to you because they're looking for a door, and you open it up. Exactly.
So Save the Storks is an incredible ministry, and I love the work that I do. The main responsibility that I have at Save the Storks covers just one of the areas of impact that are really important to us, and that is helping pregnancy centers, churches, or sidewalk advocacy groups go mobile, to take a mobile health clinic out to the community right where women are so that they can interrupt her head of, like me, where I was sure I was not going to go to a pregnancy center. That was where I needed to be. And my heart tells me that if I had seen and had the opportunity for a free pregnancy test and ultrasound before I made my decision for an abortion, it wasn't the ultrasound that I needed. It was that life-affirming conversation, right? So I could have had that if I had the opportunity to board a mobile clinic. I know that in my being, right? So we work to create a culture where women are empowered to be able to see all of the ways that they are ready to be a mom, right? We also have a church team to help mobilize the church and help the church be a place where a woman can go when she's going through something difficult. We have a program called START Course. It's START, S-T-A-R-T, course.org. It's available at our website. You can also go to startcourse.org. And that is for every believer to listen to and just understand what am I saying that might be pushing a woman to feel like she can't talk to me? And what could I be saying to pull her in to a deeper, healthier conversation about what's going on, right? We have a digital platform that we've created where women can get life-affirming access to all the reproductive health care available in their area across the country 24 hours a day. And I think that's really important because most of the time when she's trying to figure out if she's pregnant, it's not in the middle of her workday that she's making phone calls. She's on her phone, looking, what are the symptoms of pregnancy? What is it like to have an abortion? And we want to be in front of her when she's trying to make those decisions so that she doesn't ever even consider having an abortion because she sees all of the resources that are available to her.
That's amazing to do that. And I love the fact that y'all have a church part of that because I think it's very important to mobilize in the church. I've had a dream. One of my ladies actually put it together, and it's been the hardest thing in the world to start is to get the church mobilized that they will be open to it.
I've talked with so many pastors or church administration that have said, "Oh, we appreciate what you do, but we don't have an abortion problem in our church." I've heard that so many times. And the statistics are like 1 in 4 people sitting in your church have gone through an abortion and are somewhere in that 27 years of not being healed yet. So if we could be more vulnerable and talk about the hard things as a church together, we can get more people healed in realizing their identity in Christ and what the Lord would truly want them to do with that. And I don't believe that the Lord wants any of us to feel shame or condemnation for any of our sins. None of them are weighted heavier than another.
Absolutely.
You spoke of that earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but wouldn't it also, Pam, be a benefit to the church itself? Because there would be more people, the one thing that you'll always hear from churches, same thing you hear from pregnancy centers, we don't near enough people to help out of, but yet the church is full. The church is full.
Exactly.
And so if those people there were healed and whole, then they would step out and go work in the nursery. But see, that post-abortive mom may not can stand to be in that nursery because that's in her face. She can't go and work in the 3 and 4 year olds because that's in her face. She might work with the teenagers, but she can't tell what she knows because that's right there. But what if? Could we dream just a minute? Just dream of a world where the church is open to talking about abortion. Not beating a woman up that has already been through it, but sharing the fact of this is the reality of what you actually go through. This is years later, 20, 30. I had one that was 64 years later, and she was going through her first time ever of healing. And it's a passion of mine. I do not want great grandmamas to be carrying that load and carrying that secret all those years later into her eternity, because I want her to be able to know on this side of heaven, and Jesus wants her to know on this side of heaven what freedom feels like.
Yeah,
she's going to know it there, but I want her to know it here.
Exactly. You spoke about the healing retreat that you do, and I would highly, highly recommend a retreat to any man or woman that is suffering from the feelings that they're walking through from having made an abortion decision. I did a couple of Bible studies, and I loved them. They were very good, but you take that scab off, and in an hour you have to go through some things, and you put a Band-Aid on it, and you go back to life, and then you come back the next week, and it's really emotionally difficult for 8 or 10 weeks.
Yes.
An abortion retreat, post-abortive retreat, I attended one, and it was the most healing thing I've ever done in my life, because you get to go and expose who you are, expose your pain, and talk it out, and really walk out a different person. In
a non-judgment zone.
Yes.
Absolutely,
yes,
non-judgment zone. I'm convinced, and I tell the ladies when we come together, the woman that you walked in here today will not be the woman you walk out on Sunday. You're going to be a totally different woman. And I know right now that doesn't seem possible because you've carried this for so many years. But trust me, if I had an opportunity for everybody to be able to do and hear and see what God's miraculous thing is that He does in our ministry when we're there, would be incredible for them to be able to see. I would love for them to be able to see it.
Yes.
Because it is God doing it. It's Him doing His best work. He transforms women in front of my eyes. I've had women's faces, literally, it's the best facelift in the world because, and the other girls noticed it. The other girls is the one that brought it up. And she had really heavy lines, frown lines in her forehead. And so when she went through this one chapter, it was like her key chapter. And when she went through that chapter, when she came back and everybody was looking at her going, "You look different. Did something happen?" And she's going, "Well, yeah, this was big. And so they started talking about it, and they said, no, there's something really different about your face. And we kept looking at it, and I was going, oh, my goodness, she doesn't have the frown lines. They're gone. It was like a permanent frown line that was gone, and there wasn't any bringing it back. I loved that. There's just I've got so many stories over 25 years, 26 years that just blow my mind to this day. I remember one lady looked up at me with tears in her eyes, and she said, Jesus loves me. And I said, yes, honey. She said, no, really. He really does. He really does.
Yeah.
It's like revelation. First time she'd ever felt such a thing. And so it's huge, isn't it, Pam?
It really genuinely is. Yep.
That's amazing. So tell us, we've got about 3 or 4 more minutes here. Tell us a little bit more about what all Save the Storks does do.
Okay, so their main goal, their mission, is to create a story of hope and empowerment for every woman facing an unplanned pregnancy. We've been working in operation since 2012, and we focus on 4 major areas. The first one is to elevate pregnancy centers across the nation through partnerships to help them to elevate the medical services that they offer. The greatest thing would be for us to reach a woman and start building a relationship with her before she ever gets to an unplanned pregnancy, so she never even has to consider having an abortion. And we believe that with the partnerships we have with pregnancy centers, if we can get really good at getting to know her before she ever is thinking about intimacy or having an unplanned or being pregnant, that we can really make an impact for life there, helping women to never even have that as a consideration in the world, right? Yes, the mobile clinics are my favorite area of what we do. The mobile clinics are these commercial medical offices on wheels where you can take in your community, you could take them to outlying areas of your county. You could take them right to an abortion clinic so that somebody can say, before you go in there to have your abortion, come on, let's make sure that you have a healthy pregnancy, and you might not even need to have an abortion, right? Let's talk with you about what's going on. Let's explain to you what an abortion is so that your eyes are wide open and you're making the best decision for you. I believe if I had that conversation, I would have not believed that having an abortion was the best decision for me, right?
Right. And you're right about that, Pam. We see that in the pregnancy center when we have an opportunity to sit across from them, and there's no browbeating, as you know. There just isn't. So it makes all the difference in the world. Well, we're about out of time today, and I just want to thank Pam so much for coming on and sharing her heartfelt story, sharing with our audience about Save the Storks. And I want to tell you that if you go to SaveTheStorks.com, and you'll be able to find all of their social media pages. They're on Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. They're on all of them. And so if you're looking for some of the services that Pam talked about that Save the Storks offers, please go in and check them out, especially if you're a pregnancy center and you're needing help to elevate your program. And because we want to be as professional as we possibly can, we always bringing it up to the next level, and that's what Save the Storks does. So I just really want to, in a world where we say your body, your choice, there's a lot more to that story. That baby is part of the future, and you're already chosen to be their mom. So there's no getting out of it. And so you really don't have to do this alone. You have places like Options Pregnancy Center. You have pregnancy centers across the state. There's one somewhere near you. I promise you that. Pregnancy center going to be close to you. So, Pam, I just want to say thank you for your courage, for your honesty, for your willingness to turn your pain really into a purpose. And that's what we all are. We're created for a purpose. And to our listeners, if you or someone that you love is facing an unplanned pregnancy or walking through healing after a past decision, there is hope. And to learn more about the work that Pam is part of, you can visit SaveTheStorks.com. And you're not alone, and your story is not over. So this is Vicki Parker, and I will see you next time on Sit on That Stump Muddy Bottom. And remember that you can go out to Amazon, pick up that book, and it is very healing and tells you the story of redemption and forgiveness and how to dig yourself out of pit and find the diamonds that is created already inside of you. So until next week, we look forward to talking to you then.